Alright folks, so in today's video we're going to take a look at power distribution units that you can use in your ham shack. Specifically, we're going to look at power distribution units from MFJ. MFJ did reach out to me and asked if I would do a review on these products, and of course I said yes. So they sent them to me free of charge in exchange for this video review. Also, I want to mention that down here you'll see some things like a like button, a comment button, a subscribe button. Go ahead and click them. It'll make you happy. Now let's get started. Okay, we're going to start small and then work our way up to the bigger distribution units. This is the MFJ 1104, and let's go ahead and take a look and see what we get when we open the box. And what's really nice or really cool about MFJ, when they send these to you, they'll send additional fuses and they'll send power pole connectors. So that way you can wire your stuff up via power poles or change out the fuses if necessary. Let's see what we have here. So here on the 1104, one of the things that you can see are there two holes that you can use to mount this to maybe the edge of the desk, a wall, somewhere in your ham shack. And when you take a look at this power distribution unit, what you do is you run power from your battery or your power supply or whatever you're using to power your equipment, and then you feed it into your input. And so this one has 1 in and 3 out. Here you have a fuse for 30 amps, and then here you have 20, 10, and 5. Now, what I wouldn't do is have the 30 amp fuse here and then run something at 25 amps and 10 amps. You can plug things into here, but I would never exceed this 30 amps or you're going to go ahead and you're going to blow that fuse. Also, it might not be safe to do something like that. But anyhow, this is a smaller one. I will include the MFJ website where you can go and get additional information. Sometimes they provide the schematic or they provide pricing. But today, I just wanted to show some of these power distribution units and talk about the features. Where these come in really handy is that when you do have multiple pieces of gear that you need to power. So for example, power supply comes in here. Maybe this goes to your 100 watt HF rig. Maybe this goes to something a little bit smaller like a 25 or 50 watt dual bander. Okay, next we're going to take a look at the 1106. Again, you can see the power poles that shipped with this particular product. Now, this one did not have any fuses that came with it because this is a fuse-free distribution unit. And so, as a result, this may or may not work for you. You may be somebody who wants to use fuses like on the 1104, but the 1106 doesn't. Now, I have one of these that I use when I operate portable or when I take my radio somewhere just to be able to split power up, and it works really well. This has 1 in and 6 out, and you could really use any of these for your in. But this model is pretty basic, and there's not a whole lot to talk about. So, 6-way desktop DC power distribution unit. Next on the list, we're going to take a look at the 1107. So let's go ahead and pop this baby open. I did not see any power poles in there, but that might have been because I took them out and used them for something else. Oh, nope, here they are, power poles. And then this comes with, it looks to be maybe a 5.5 millimeter jack. And then it has some wire with stripped connections here that you could use. So here's the 1107 power distribution box. This one is made out of plastic, where this one is made out of some sort of metal. Probably aluminum or some cheap steel or something like that. And then here you can actually see that the fuse jacks are exposed, as well as the entire power pole connector. Anyhow, when I take a look into here, it looks like we have inputs. Probably going to have to take a look at the directions online for this particular one. But I'm going to assume that this is an input here for your 40. Here's a 30 amp. Here is 25, 10, and 5. So this one looks like it has a capacity of 40 amps. And then it also has these banana connectors or terminal connectors where you can put a spade connector in there. and then go ahead and connect your power up. What we're going to do is we're going to pull up the product documentation and see what this is used for, and we're going to talk about that right now. So here we are at the MFJ Enterprises website, and this is for the MFJ 1107 DC distribution box. 1 in binding post, 6 out, power poles 2.1 millimeter. So I was off in my sizing there. If you take a look, it's $59.95. There is no product documentation, but there's a description. So these binding posts here are how you're going to get power into your distribution box. You can use these Anderson power pole outputs along with the fused outputs to get power out. And this has two 2.1 millimeter center positive power jacks. And so this is where you would plug things in, like if you had an MFJ. Well, I have an MFJ 894 power and SWR meter that I use for my ICOM 7300. So you could power some other devices here, and it looks like they're always on and unfused, other than the 40 amp fuse draw by the entire distribution box. So anyhow, that's the information there. All right, these things are starting to get big. This is the MFJ 1124. And let's see what we have here. So again, we have some fuses and some power pole connectors. Oh, this thing is bagged up. And then here's your DC power outlet. Here's a ground lug, and that's a pretty handy feature to have. You can ground this out to your regular shack ground to help with any RFI or safety concerns that you may have. And this looks like some really heavy gauge wire. It looks, maybe it's, I don't know, I'm thinking maybe it's around a 4. Don't know for sure, but then it has these ring terminals, and you can mount those into your power supply or to your battery. And then here it looks like you have 40 amp fuse on your input, and then the outputs are labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which would include these binding posts, and 6. And so we have 10 amps, 20 amps, 1 amp, 5, 10, 25. So this might be an option. It also has these mounting holes. This might be an option for you if you have a little bit of a larger shack and you have more equipment or more gear, or even more connection types. Like you can put banana plugs here in the end, as I mentioned. You can screw them up and you can put a wire in there, or you can use like a fork, or I think they're called spade terminal connectors, which is what I would do. I don't like hooking just bare wire in there. I feel that that's a little bit of a safety issue. I prefer to use some sort of terminal like this. So anyhow, here is the MFJ 1124, and that could be pretty handy in your ham shack. This isn't even going to fit in under the camera, but this is the MFJ 1126, and this is another big boy. Now I use let me just check and make sure I got the number right. I use the MFJ 1129 in my ham shack, but we're not going to show that today because it's behind everything and it's a big mess and there's wires everywhere and it will not look so nice. So you're just going to have to look that one up online if that's something that you want to see. Again, we have the ring connectors on this thick, heavy gauge wire that feels pretty good. And again, we have a ground lug here. And then when you take a look at this, it tells you that your input fuse max is 40 amps. So this is a 40 amp product. It does have these mount holes where you can connect this up. And then taking a look at this, it has 3 are unswitched, 40 amps total. So that means you run 40 amps total out between these 3. And then you have a switched outlet here where you can turn this on. We also have a little bit of a DC voltmeter, which is handy in some cases. Where mine's mounted, I can't see that voltmeter, so it doesn't do me any good. But you might be the type of person to mount this in a place where you can see it, and then you can manage or monitor your voltage usage. 4 to 8 are switched, 20 amps total. So that means you get 20 amps over these particular devices. And where this is handy is you may have things here that you don't want powered on all the time, so you can just turn it off here and here without turning off your power supply, which could maintain consistent power here. Obviously, when I use mine, I leave this on unless I do want to turn these off, and then I just control the main power source here with my power supply, whether it's on or not. Anyhow, I think that's going to wrap up the video. I just wanted to talk a little bit about power distribution units, how you would use them, and show some of the options that are available in the market. These things are a lifesaver, and they can really allow you to maximize or make your ham shack a little bit more efficient, especially if you have a larger power supply that can power multiple pieces of gear or equipment. Anyhow, I want to say thanks to MFJ for sending these products to me for my consideration. I want to say thanks for watching, everybody. I truly appreciate it. If you have any questions, comments, criticisms, concerns, suggestions, or recommendations, go ahead and post them below, and I'll do my best to respond. Thanks, everybody.